please, don't try anything that you're about to see us do at home. Ever.
In this episode of Mythbusters,
it's science.
The build team mines a myth from ancient China as Carrie keeps an ear out for an invading army.
I couldn't hear a thing, but...
And are we being fooled by the 5-second rule?
Oh, I picked it up after like 3 seconds. Would you eat it?
Adam takes precautions in this bacteria bonanza.
No French kissing Adam.
I don't eat my own food.
Who are the Mythbusters? Adam Savage
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
and Jamie Heineman.
We're either going to die or we're going to fly.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
That was intense.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
So, what's the myth? What do we got?
This is Chinese invasion alarm, and we got it from a high school science class, which posts on our website.
Apparently, the Chinese had an early warning detection system for approaching armies that involved stretching a leather membrane over the mouth of an 80-liter pottery jar.
Then what they would do is strategically drill holes around the town and lower these drums deep into these shafts.
Men with the best hearing were stationed around these shafts, and they could listen to the vibrations. They could not only tell how far away the armies were, but from which direction they were coming from.
Wow, it's kind of like an ancient rudimentary transducer of some kind.
And it also sounds like something that we're all familiar with in old westerns.
Keeping an ear to the ground perhaps refers to the fact that terra firma transmits sound waves. According to Hollywood, at least, these can be detected by the highly tuned ear.
A French scouting party, like it not?
Grant and Tori kick off the myth with a foray into San Francisco's Chinatown, a treasure trove of Eastern esoterica. They're looking for a selection of pots, which they'll turn into drums for some initial testing. Though, as usual, there's some pointless pottering to go through first. With the gratuitous goat play behind them, they stumble into the pottery section where, spoiled for choice, they take pot luck.
How old are these? Are they like, could they be considered ancient?
This one almost 100 years.
100 years?
Yeah.
This is 100 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all antique.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
It's very
Okay.
good one.
Sticker's newer though, but
See?
the vase itself could be 100 years
Well,
old.
that's a
Yeah.
good start. But what are these made out of?
Made by, clay, ceramic.
Ceramic.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very good one.
Very
This is the bit where they ask the shop owner if she's heard of the myth.
that they used to use these pots, they would bury them in the ground and cover them with leather skins.
And this is the bit where the shopkeeper says,
No, I didn't hear about that.
Well, do you think
But-
it would work?
I have no idea because I haven't tried it before.
can't say fairer than that. Armed with a variety of pots, they head for home.
Taxi!
Back at M5, Grant and Carrie join forces to turn their pots into drums.
Jamming.
The number of drums they've made between them amounts to less than one, so they decide to pool their ignorance.
Apologies to everyone who actually makes their own drums. We have no idea what we're doing.
Meanwhile, Tori's marching to his own beat by building mechanical boots to simulate an advancing army.
I think that's going to work pretty good.
Grant and Carrie have slipped into a workmanlike rhythm, and the first drum looks relatively professional. Tori's impressed.
Look at our little drum, Tori. Doesn't this look cool?
Wow, you guys are like regular drum makers. How'd you learn how to make the,
We faked it, just like everything we do.
Everything's running smoothly. The build team is operating like a well-oiled machine. What could possibly go wrong? after the break.
I love having bacteriological tests done.
Adam and Jamie count colonies in their bacterial empire.
Oh, I got some in my eye.
And Carrie gets to shave a goat for science.
You know, my people come from a long line of goat shavers.
Well, I believe you're about to tell us a classic American old wives' tale.
Absolutely. Having kids, I'm really familiar with this. It's the 5-second rule. And the rule is if you drop a piece of food on the floor and retrieve it within 5 seconds, it won't have actually gathered any bacteria or viruses from the floor, and it's okay to eat it. And really, it's almost always you have to say 5-second rule before you pop that cookie in your mouth.
Or that toast. In an earlier myth, the team was testing whether toast really does drop butter side down.
Yes. You gonna eat those?
A hungry Scotty invoked the 5-second rule.
What's that rule?
That if you drop something on the floor and it's within 5 seconds that you pick it up, you can still eat it.
Some viewers may wish to look away as Scotty eats toast that's been on the sidewalk.
Yes!
Okay, I'm going to say, well, I guess I won't say that.
So was Scotty safe to snack? Or did she ingest a battalion of bacteria?
Oh, I picked it up after like 3 seconds. Would you eat it?
But I wouldn't eat it just because you've handled it.
To make things easier, we've gotten some contact plates which have a growth medium inside them that can grow either bacteria or fungi, which can produce really harmful toxins. And the first thing we're going to do is take those and see what the distribution of fungi and bacteria is on your kitchen floor.
Before they drop the food, they need to know the bacteria distribution on Jamie's floor. So is M5 as neat and clean as a new pin, or is it a filth-ridden bucket of scum? Adam and Jeremy don't want to contaminate their samples, so they don gloves and masks. In line with the myth, each contact plate will get 5 seconds exposure to different sections of floor.
So I'm going to grab one of these plates here, and in here we're going to test in front of the sink and in front of the fridge.
Okay.
The contact plates contain a tryptic soy medium, which may sound like a vegan psychic, but is actually a substance that encourages the growth of bacteria.
You tell me when to go.
Go.
If the floor is contaminated, the contact plates will show it.
4, 5.
Once they've swabbed the kitchen's decks, they head for the Mythbusters mess hall.
Okay, ready.
Then it's downstairs to the shop floor.
You know, now we get to find out definitively just how clean your shop is.
It's a shop. What do you want?
I want to be able to eat off the damn floor. What's my immune system for anyway?
4, 5.
All right. Bathroom.
Over the years, the Mythbusters bathroom has played host to some less than hygienic hijinks. It's housed ducks and skunks and been rubbed down with engine grease.
This place looks a little dingy, Jenny.
Yeah, this may well be the dirtiest part of the shop, huh?
I just want to do one brush for my own personal edification right on the toilet seat, because I've heard a myth that the toilet seat's actually the cleanest place in any given house.
4, 5.
That's why I love this job. All right, you ready to incubate these guys?
All right.
They'll incubate the plates for 24 hours at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, otherwise known as body temperature.
Shop floor, lunch table, kitchen sink, and my personal favorite, the toilet seat.
Early indications suggest that M5 may be a little workshop of horrors. The build team is testing the myth that ancient Chinese cities used pottery drums to listen out for approaching armies. Tori's been working on a marching machine, while Carrie and Grant have been having a bash at making drums. Everything's been going smoothly, which is a pity, as they learn that they've been barking up the wrong myth.
We just received some new information about this story that's going to radically change the direction that we're going to have to take. And, what happened was the publishers of the textbook that was the source of the original story have sent us their fact-checking sheets.
Their source for this story comes from a book, Lao Tzu, which is about 4th century BC. The shafts were 5 paces apart. They were 15 feet below the base of the city wall. We found out the size of the pottery jars were 40 toe, which is equivalent to 200 liters. I mean, that's a little bigger than we had thought before. The most significant thing of all is the fact that this was to detect the tunneling and mining of a besieging army and not an approaching marching one.
The history of warfare is shot through with examples of military tunnels, as this documentary film from the First World War shows.
Below the ground, the tunnelers are at work on mines under the enemy positions. Listening for their sapping suggests that enemy countermining is close.
Borrowing armies monitored each other's movements by listening out for the sounds of nearby digging.
When this is confirmed, work must be hurried.
Galleries beneath the enemy positions were packed with explosives, then detonated. According to the myth, the ancient Chinese also used military tunnels.
Well, that makes so much more sense. I was trying to wrap my head around why you'd use these embedded drums in shafts to detect an oncoming army when you could use watchtowers and signal fires to do it at the speed of light instead of the speed of sound. That sounds like it makes our experiment a lot easier.
The new research reveals that the myth originated with Mo Tzu, a philosopher who was writing about 400 BC. He described an early warning system designed to protect walled cities against tunneling invaders. It comprised a system of sunken drums, which could pick up vibrations from underground digging. By comparing the intensity of the sound at different locations, sentries could determine the direction of an incoming tunnel and intercept it. To get this myth back on track, Carrie and Tori take another pot shot at another pot shop to find a 200-liter vessel.
Ooh, this one's pretty. Look at that glaze. Oh, I love these. They're so cute. I'm so happy. Look at that.
Tori leaves the browsing to Carrie and gets down to the business at hand.
Okay, what do you got for height?
58 inches.
504.
That's too much. 41 inches.
41. Exactly 200 liters.
I think we found our pot.
They've got their pot, so it's back to M5 to shave a goat. No kidding, really.
You know, my people come from a long line of goat shavers, so I feel it's in my blood.
Apparently, goat skins for the fuller drum only come covered in hair, which presents Carrie with yet another opportunity for growth.
I can't say I'm necessarily looking forward to shaving the goat, but I am looking forward to calling my parents tonight and be like, guess what I did today?
Carrie's never shaved a goat, but she's incredibly well connected, proving that it's not what you know, it's who you know.
We talked to Akbar, the goat shaver, and what he recommended is to first take clippers, then stretch it after it's been soaked for half an hour, and then take one of those little, disposable razors so that you can get the fine stubble.
In the world of goat shaving, Akbar is king. Carrie follows his instructions to the letter with royal results.
Excellent job shaving your goat.
The skin is soaked in water so that it's ready for stretching, then placed over the mouth of the 200-liter pot. With With a morning's practice under their belts, Carrie and Grant make light work of stringing the drum. When the skin is taut, they give it one final shave.
Shaving the drum skin.
Coming up, Mythbusters takes Microbiology 101.
Would only a fool use the 5-second rule? Don't try this at home. And the build team goes underground in Chinese invasion alarm.
Let's do some exploring.
Okay, let's go.
According to the 5-second rule, food that has been on the floor for 5 seconds or less will be uncontaminated. Good. To test the myth, Adam and Jamie have placed bacteria contact plates on different parts of M5's floor for 5 seconds apiece. 5. The plates have been incubating for 24 hours at body temperature to see just how much bacteria they've picked up.
Let's scoop them up.
Ooh. They're all kind of yummy, aren't they? Oh, man, this stuff is rank.
Yep.
To discover M5's level of hygiene, the guys count the number of bacteria colonies on each sample.
The bathroom number 2 looks like a bloody horror show. I think I dropped it right in someone's drop of wee or something.
Shop floor number 2, 132.
Lunch table number 2?
Yeah.
26 colonies.
Adam's like a kid with a new chemistry set.
I love having bacteriological test stuff.
Come to think of it, Adam is a kid with a new chemistry set.
Later on, I want to lick one of these and get a dog to lick one and see if my mouth is cleaner than a dog's mouth.
How are you going to feel if it turns out your mouth is dirtier than a dog's?
That's fine. It's served me just fine until now. There's no reason to freak out.
Adam's busting to check the results of the toilet seat myth. And it's a eureka moment.
Whoa! There is almost no bacteria on the toilet seat. That is so cool. We have proven a myth. Looking at our samples just briefly from all over Mythbusters, your toilet seat seems to be the most bacteria-free.
Well, that doesn't really surprise me a whole lot because we're testing the floor,
But people don't rub their bare bottoms on your floor all the time. I mean, I'm thinking this is everyone in the company's butt has sat where I put this Petri dish.
If cleanliness is next to godliness, then heaven is a Mythbusters toilet seat. Toilet humor aside, what did the floor test show?
On all of these figures, there's sometimes a very wide variability between 2 spots we chose that were side by side. I mean, we might not end up testing the 5-second rule here. We might end up testing where you happen to drop the piece of food.
What we need to do is to start with a sterile surface and evenly contaminate it so that we have an even playing field, and that will boil it down to the time, not the actual surface or what's on it.
Right, so yeah, cleanly bacterial inoculated. Right, that sounds great.
In the myth of the 5-second rule, Adam and Jamie have decided to make a uniformly filthy piece of floor. That way, when they drop food on it, they should get consistent contamination.
So I see some pans.
We have some tiles.
Final floor tiles.
We have beef broth. And we have some pans.
For some reason, whenever I see these things, I have the desire to smash them on my head. You ready?
Yeah.
See if I can get a perfect face print.
So with that out of the way, what's the plan?
So the plan is that once we get these trimmed down to fit in pans, we're going to pour beef broth.
What's beef broth? Is it beef broth?
They leave the floor tiles to rot in the bois, and Adam turns his attention to another mini myth.
I've always heard that a dog's mouth is supposedly cleaner than a human's mouth.
So this has got nothing to do with the 5-second rule. We're just comparing your hygiene to a dog's, right?
Not my hygiene. A human's hygiene in their mouth to a dog's hygiene. I guess empirically what we will be testing is my hygiene against Linda's dog, but...
Just do it. Just look the darn thing.
All right. Here, for science. Doesn't taste like anything. Where's the dog? Bring on the dog! Want to lick the sterile agar plate? Oh, Lou, that's perfect. Thank you. Good girl.
Is it just me, or does Lulu look quietly confident? Time will tell. Back at the myth of the 5-second rule, the floor tiles are fully festered.
What, 5 days now?
They smell really, really bad.
Yeah, I know. Let's get them out, hang them up, and dry them off, and see if we can use them today.
Jamie punches out plastic templates which will ensure sample sizes are consistent. While they're sterilizing in the microwave, Adam gloves up.
Coming up, Mythbusters takes Microbiology 101.
Adam has to behave like this. It's in his contract. But whatever you do, don't do this at home. To test the 5-second rule, they'll use a wet food, a dry food, and an evenly contaminated floor tile.
So, it's science.
Samples of wet pastrami and dry crackers are exposed for 2 seconds and 6 seconds. In other words, for less than and more than 5 seconds. They also do a control on samples that don't touch the floor at all, in case they are already coated with bacteria.
Control number 2. I know I love building big things and blowing stuff up, but this is also super, super fun.
Okay, fishing out a new one.
He doesn't care.
And go.
And the bulk of our Mythbusters bacteriology test is done. Cool. Can't wait to find out what happens.
In the myth of the Chinese invasion alarm, Carrie takes a step back in time to abandoned 19th century gold diggings in the hills beyond San Francisco. Frank Jacoby leads Carrie through the dark passageways of the Priest Mine, one of the oldest hard rock mines in California. The walls are etched with history. Like the mythical tunnels of the Chinese invasion alarm, the Priest Mine was dug by hand.
One of the things that is a surprise in here is what you're leaning against. Take a good close look at the walls there. And what do you see on those walls?
Looks like Freddy Krueger was in here.
What those are the miners' tool marks that they used to carve out this tunnel. Those are the chisel and pick marks from 150 plus years ago.
This is as close as they're going to get to an ancient Chinese military tunnel in modern California. Now they have to find a location where they can simulate the sound of an underground army.
And then up here is the air shaft going up to the surface about 55 feet to the top, to the wooden roof up there.
I mean, this place is beautiful. I'm thinking for our criteria, we need two things. We need very specifically a 15-foot shaft that has a floor at the bottom and an open mine.
The Priest Mine perfectly fulfills one criterion. So they resurface to look for a nearby spot where they can sink their early warning hole.
I think this might be where we need to dig the hole. I mean, if we can get a backhoe up here, and we're this close to a mine, I don't think we're going to get anything more ideal.
Okay. After the break.
This is insane.
I got it.
The build team avoids backache in the myth of the Chinese invasion alarm.
If Carrie, Grant, and I were to try to dig this hole, I don't know, how long would it take? Maybe a week?
In the myth of the Chinese invasion alarm, the build team has been laying the foundations for a foray into the world of ancient underground warfare.
Ooh, the tightest tap. I think this is going to work great.
They're investigating the myth that ancient Chinese cities had a detection system for tunneling invaders. It's all about seismology. Rocks, as hard as they seem, are elastic and deform when impacted by force, like in an earthquake. Today, scientists can pick up seismic waves from even the smallest underground tremors using geophones. Replace tremors with a tunneling army and the geophones with drums, and you've got yourself a myth. The build team has borrowed some geophones from the U.S. Geological Survey, which they plan to use as controls during their experiment. Meticulous as ever, Grant tests them out in the lot of M5.
Go get him, boy.
He's aided by his very own homemade robot, which comes equipped with a handy pickaxe. The tiny seismic waves are detected by the geophone and displayed on a monitor. Meanwhile, Tori is constructing a metal and ply gantry, which they'll place over their shaft for safety. The plan's simple. Sink a 15-foot shaft and lower in the drum. 30 feet away, in the Priest Mine's air shaft, they'll swing their pick and see if the vibrations are detectable. They're good to go. Time to load up the Mythbusters mule and head for them there hills. On second thoughts, they dump the mule and the shovels and bring in a digger. Ever heard of taking a hammer to crack a nut?
This is insane.
I got it.
Ridiculous.
While the build team supervises the city's defenses, Adam and Jamie head below to the mine, which will represent the besieging tunnel.
I don't think I've ever been in a mine before.
Well, then you're just about to have a real neat experience.
Well, you know, Jamie actually used to do silver mining back in the 30s in South America, didn't you?
Well, I noticed this pick he has on his shoulder here. I'm watching out for him. Shall we go on in?
To test the myth, they're looking for 3 locations where their invading army can go to work. They couldn't have hoped for anything more authentic.
You can pretty much match up the same pick you have to what you'll see on the wall here. This was all pretty much dug by hand. It's the same kind of idea.
Wow.
Now imagine doing that 12 hours a day, day in and day out, 7 days a week, no days off. A lot of work.
Good exercise.
You betcha.
Having seen the mine firsthand, the guys take a look at a map to determine exactly where Jamie will launch his assault.
So this is the map that you were talking about?
Yeah, this kind of lays it all out for you.
And what are we, right here?
That's correct. That's the entrance to the Priest Mine.
So that's that little offside room that was one of our sites, right?
That's right.
And that's the shaft where the other site was.
That's right.
So this goes up to the surface right about here.
Uh-huh. So our hole is probably, our alarm hole is probably right here. I'd say we look at 3 sites. I'd say it's that one, this one, and then this one would be the last site that we'd try if neither of these worked.
Sure. Meanwhile, 50 feet above, the chain gang has never had it so good.
Now I'm excited. I can't believe how easy it was to do all this. Or have somebody else do all this.
Yeah. Busting ancient myths with modern equipment sits just fine with Tori.
I mean, this has taken maybe like all of an hour to dig this hole. If Carrie, Grant, and I were to try to dig this hole, I don't know, how long would it take? Maybe a week?
In no time at all, the digger's done digging, and the build team checks the depth.
16 feet.
All right, we made it.
Yay!
Nice job.
Woo!
So far, so good. Then Grant spots a possible spanner in the earthworks.
There's a wet spot on the side of the hole, and that could mean that come tomorrow morning when we come back out here, the hole will be filled with water.
The build team wraps up the day by installing Tori's homemade safety gantry.
Whoa! Hey, watch yourself, Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah. You almost lost Carrie.
Tomorrow will tell if they have an alarm hole or a borehole on their hands. After the break, is Adam's mouth dirtier than a dog's?
I don't eat my own poo.
And will the 5-second rule bite the dust?
Well, in another 24 hours, we're going to know the answer to the age-old question
of the 5-second rule. Go.
At the M5 laboratory, Adam and Jamie are testing the 5-second rule on food samples.
Yeah.
While they wait for their samples to incubate, they check out a related myth.
Let's see the dog's mouth in
Well, that's clear enough.
That looks pretty definitive. That's my mouth. I can see tons of little bacteria colonies growing in exactly the shape of my tongue. And here, where Lulu licked, I see a much smaller concentration. So no French kissing dogs, I think, is our conclusion here.
I would be more inclined to say no French kissing Adam.
And, my mouth is a representative sample. I don't eat my own poo.
Let's take that as read. Nonetheless, if bacteria count is your benchmark, you've got to smooch the pooch. Bacteria myths are being busted by the bucketful. But how about the big one? The meat and cracker samples are fully incubated and ready to be counted.
So this is supposed to be our definitive test of the 5-second rule. What do you think is actually going to happen?
I don't think there's going to be any significant difference.
I tend to agree with you that there's not going to be a significant difference between 2 seconds and 6 seconds. But shall we start counting?
The results show that all the food did pick up bacteria from the floor tile.
21 for cracker, 2 seconds.
But the wet pastrami picked up more than the dry crackers.
322 for meat, 6 seconds.
On the crucial question of time, the results were less than definitive, with no conclusive distinctions between the 2-second and the 6-second samples.
So does that mean that it's better to eat crackers that have been dropped on the floor than pastrami that's been dropped on the floor?
Well, not exactly, but it does mean that if there is something harmful there on the floor, the odds are the pastrami is more likely to pick it up.
But what about the 5-second rule? Was there a difference between the samples dropped for 2 seconds and the samples dropped for 6 seconds?
Well, I don't think the results were all that conclusive, but as far as I can tell, time didn't seem to be a factor because all the samples seem to show about the same amount of contamination no matter how long they sat on the floor.
But I'm not ready to put this one to rest just yet. I think we have one more test to do. It's not really about the food and it's not really about the floor. It's about the time. And I'd like to eliminate the food and try applying our contact plates directly to our inoculated floor surface for the correct periods of time, 2 seconds, 6 seconds, and see if there's any difference in how much bacteria they pick up.
I think that makes sense. It's removing all the other variables.
The 5-second rule has been around a long time, and it's not giving up without a fight. By leaving out the food in this final test, they eliminate every variable, except the crucial one, time.
Well, in another 24 hours, we're going to know the answer to the age-old question
of the 5-second rule. Load me up.
24 hours later, it's time to count the colonies. If there's any truth to the 5-second rule, the 2-second plates should have far less bacteria than the 6-second ones.
Whoa.
Wow, that's,
dude.
2-second exposure is huge.
The colony count is so massive as to be uncountable, but it looks identical for both.
There's no discernible difference between the samples, regardless of how long they spent on the floor.
This is really the definitive test for this myth. We could test a million different foods and get a million different results, but right here, eliminating all other factors purely on time, a 2-second exposure as opposed to a 6-second exposure, there's no difference.
They're almost identical, or they are identical.
Yeah. So that's an excellent result.
The final bell has tolled, and this myth looks out for the count.
5-second rule, what's the verdict?
Well, I think we were both pretty clear on what the results would be, and it took a little while, but we got it. There's absolutely no correlation between how much bacteria food picks up and how much time it has spent on the floor.
In fact, it seemed like it was all about everything else but the time. It was how moist the food was, the surface geometry of the food, what was on the floor and how contaminated it was, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about the time.
We got to figure out a bunch of other cool stuff, like the toilet seat's the cleanest place in your shop.
And that your mouth's dirtier than a dog's. And speaking of which, are you going to let your kids eat off the floor?
Well, I'm raising them off of your life story that you told me. I figure if they eat off the floor until they're 8 or 10, they'll have a super hardy constitution.
Yeah, right. Well, the myth is busted one way or another.
It's totally busted. Bada bing, bada boom.
After the break, will the Mythbusters' talking drums speak of invasion?
There you go.
Beauty.
Or is the ancient early warning system a mute myth? Morning has broken at the walled city of ancient China.
What? Look out for the tree!
The day is dry and clear, but what about the alarm hole? The build team is praying that it hasn't turned into a pond overnight.
Moment of truth. I'm nervous.
Not bad. Not bad at all. I see. I mean, there is some mud on this side.
So,
That side's gross.
yeah, this is,
You know what?
This is good.
I think this is going to be perfect.
Phew. I didn't sleep so good last night.
Before they lower the drum, Grant wants to test the geophone to make sure that it can detect the tunneling army.
Okay, and contact.
And ready.
I got something very faint. I think I might be able to pick it out. Carrie, did you hear anything?
I can't hear anything with my naked ear.
The experiment setup is spot on. Jamie's digging is out of earshot, but the geophone can detect faint tremors through the earth. Now they'll see if the drum can pick up the vibrations with enough resonance to be heard by the human ear.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
The ancient amplifier is lowered slowly into its earthy socket.
Okay. Yeah, let's aim it.
There you go.
Beauty.
So, for the first time in more than half a century, this mine will ring to the sound of a swinging pick. But will the talking drum warn Adam and Carrie that invaders are on their way?
So, Jamie, if we find gold, are you going to share it with me?
50 feet away, Jamie and Tori are going to play the part of the tunneling Chinese army.
And 1.
They swing quickly into rhythm, aiming hefty blows at the hard rock.
4, 5, 6.
The mine shaft is mic'd, so Grant can clearly hear the pick's percussion. He'll keep an eye on Adam and Carrie, who will signal if they hear a drum beat. According to the myth, citizens with extraordinary hearing were selected to man these listening posts, begging the question why deaf as a post Adam is on the job.
10,
11.
Adam's in an auditory black hole, but Carrie seems to be picking up something.
18.
19.
20.
That's 20. Stand by for playback.
The geophone did record the sound, but only just.
So faint.
So how about the drum?
It sounded like a really low hum, and then every time you hit it would go as if somebody has just barely just going on the drum.
I can't believe that it worked. That's incredible.
I can't believe it either. I'm amazed. I'm totally amazed.
It's quite a result. There seems no doubt that Carrie really was hearing the blows as they happened.
I believe that the noise was definitely coming up the shaft. I believe the shaft was giving me a little bit of an echo. There was a lot of ambient noise around above me, birds and shuffling, but it was very, very different. I didn't hear it from this ear. I only heard it from this ear. So I firmly believe that the sound was coming from the drum. And it wasn't as much of a tap as it was a little beat. We brought out all of this fancy instrumentation. I mean, look at Grant. He's completely wired up. Earphones, geophones, all that, microphones. The Chinese invasion alarms seem to work better. This is the most exciting part about this job, is when you walk in with all of these preconceived notions of failure, like, that's not going to work. No, there's no way. I don't think one of us thought this was definitely going to work. And then it does.
Okay, here is position number 2.
All right, maybe I can finally hear it.
We're in a new location. We're underneath the drum. Jamie's going to strike the wall 20 times. You ready, Jamie?
Okay.
Everybody ready?
We are ready.
Adam's hoping that the hearing trumpet will help overcome his limitations in the listening department.
Striking!
But past experience on Mythbusters suggests it may not be big enough.
What's that you say, Sonny? I can't quite hear you.
1, 2, 3.
Grant listens into the tunnel mic and counts off each blow of the pickaxe.
9, 10. 16, 17, 18.
Okay, that's 20.
Did you hear anything? No, I don't think I did either.
And we won't know until we go up there whether it made any difference. I'm not hearing quite so much reverberation here.
Did you guys hear anything?
Not that time.
Now, there were a couple times when there was something that might have been it, but really, I started looking at your hands when you were counting off the hits, and I wasn't hearing anything.
All right. I didn't get much on the geophone either.
So the invasion alarm seems to have a blind spot, or rather, deaf spot, directly below it. For test number 3, Jamie and Tori moved to a new location 50 feet deep and over 100 feet away.
Okay, I can hear them. The mic's set. So this is position 3, chapel dugout. Ready?
We're ready. And 1.
Busting this myth can be back-breaking work.
9, 10, 11, 12. 16, 17.
Okay, that's 20.
I think at that rate, we'll be inside the city walls in 2 months.
I was watching your finger.
Yeah, nothing. I didn't hear anything on that one.
I was watching her finger.
I did.
You did?
She did.
The only time I couldn't hear it was when your jacket shuffled a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I had my thumb like this, and every time I heard it, I went.
Yeah.
And you were nailing it?
Oh, yeah, she was nailing it. I was watching her.
Wow.
That's far.
That is far. That's farther than test number 2 by actually a not insignificant distance. I can't believe we heard it. I mean, that's amazing.
No Army's going to tunnel 100 feet down before they start coming towards the city wall. So I'm thinking this scenario is a lot more likely. They'd just be that far out, but that's really far to hear it.
Nice experiment, nice design, good rig. I'm just blown away.
It's been a long day at the coalface, and the besieging army resurfaces to learn its fate.
Well,
what'd you guys find?
Woohoo!
We totally heard it.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. It worked from there, and it worked from position 1, and it worked from position 3. It did not work from position 2.
Second location was a softer strata on the number 1 and the number 3. We had good hard quartz and we could get a good throw at it.
Yeah.
The other one I was hitting the roof with soft stuff.
When you were hitting the quartz on that first test, Carrie heard it crystal clear.
That is cool.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I thought this thing wouldn't pick up anything.
I couldn't hear a thing, but Carrie's up here with the cone, and Grant is counting off the hits, and Carrie's not looking at him, and she's matching him perfectly hit for hit.
Oh, it was beautiful.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Now the crazy thing is, we couldn't necessarily detect it on all of the equipment when we first did it.
That this was
so the drone
more sensitive than the equipment that we brought.
I got a little bit on the geophone, but you know, the really expensive audio frequency mic didn't get anything.
In a strange way, it makes sense because it's such a large surface area, so a small instrument, however sophisticated, might not work quite as well as just a great big diaphragm that is there receiving the sound waves.
Well, are you guys ready to fill in a hole?
Oh, man. I've been waiting for that all day.
This should take us about...
Jamie and I are going to see you back at the shop, but you guys have
Really?
to
I'm surprised by
Shocking!
Ladies and gentlemen.
I can't believe that worked.
So, what do we think? Is it busted, plausible, or confirmed?
Well, we know that it was written about in an ancient Chinese text, but we couldn't find any evidence physically that it ever existed.
Yeah, but it is a fairly complex and esoteric system to write about if it wasn't used at some point successfully.
So, what do we call this? Plausible?
I'd say that meets the definition of plausible.
Absolutely plausible.
Agreed.
Amazing.